Hello, and welcome to the Movie Universe. I'm your host, Movie Fan. Today, I'll be talking about Dragnet. Dragnet is probably one of the greatest cop shows to ever be created, and of course, it has some very legendary stories, a great cast, and probably one of the most recognizable theme songs in television history, the famous dum da-dum dum dum da-dum dum dum. Just a simple tone, and we all know what we're watching. For those of you who don't know, Dragnet is the first true blue cop show. It originally started as a radio program created by Jack Webb, and starring him as well. It basically highlighted the cases that police officers had gone through in LAPD. And, unlike most TV shows, every one of these episodes were true. In fact, they always say that the story you're about to hear is true. The names have been changed in order to protect the innocent. The show centered around a sergeant named Joe Friday and his partner Frank Smith, who worked in homicide, in robbery, con artist schemes, you name it, they covered it. And basically they solved the crimes. That's pretty much the gist of it. It was one of the most popular radio programs of its time. It started in 1949 and went all the way into 1957. That's officially 9 years that it actually ran for. Of course, in the 50s, radio was dying and television was taking over, so Dragnet transitioned to television. In 1951, Dragnet premiered on television, pretty much at the same time the radio series was going on. However, believe it or not, the series lasted only 8 years. It went from 1951 all the way to 1959. And again, it was the same principle. Joe Friday and Frank Smith solve crimes and, well, they catch the bad guys. And of course, most importantly, they were played by their original actors. Since it was the 1950s, the contrast is kind of bad, the sharpness isn't exactly very good, and quite a few times the scenery is way too bright, where it kind of blinds the picture, if you will. So for anyone to watch this now, it would look kind of terrible. But back then, this was television getting started. So back then, this was pretty acceptable. And despite that, the show is still worth watching. Believe me, I would know. I've seen it before. It's a very good show. And one of the best things was that they kept the original theme song. When the show ended in 1959, television moved on to other things. And, well, the show was almost virtually forgotten. But then in 1967, Dragnet came back, this time in full blazing color, and still starring Jack Webb. However, this time he had a new partner. Officer Bill Gannon became his partner, played by famous actor Harry Morgan. You would know him better as Colonel Potter and so many other characters on television and movies. This man was truly everywhere back in the day. This show ran from 1967 all the way to 1970, so sadly it had a very short run, a lot shorter than the first two. And in this case, I think I know what went wrong here. Close to the end, they were making so many bunco stories. For those of you who are not familiar with the term, bunco is basically con artist schemes. And the problem is people wanted to watch more homicides. They wanted to watch more robberies, not bunkos. So that got very boring. In fact, I have seen the series all the way through, and to the last final 2 years or so, every episode is all bunco, 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 bunco. And as you can imagine, that's very boring. So it's no wonder why the show didn't last as long. And for quite a long time, the show was virtually forgotten except for by the people who were there to see it back in the day. And then out of nowhere, in 2003, they brought it back. This time starring Ed O'Neill as Lieutenant Joe Friday. No longer is he a sergeant, he's a full-blown lieutenant. And his partner, Frank Smith, is played by Ethan Embry. You would know him better from the series Freaky Links. And unlike the original series, he had an entire team. And of course, they don't call it Dragnet, they call it LA Dragnet. But they still kept the original persona. They kept the stories to be true, with the names being changed to protect the innocent, which is traditional for all the Dragnets. And they kept the theme song. Sadly, the show only lasted for 1 year, from 2003 to 2004. Why it didn't catch on with the people, I have no idea. And then in 2006, they tried to revive it once again, but once again, it tanked. If you really want to watch Dragnet, I say watch the originals, or better yet, listen to the original radio program. That has a lot going for it. I have nothing bad to say about LA Dragnet, because it was a pretty good show. The only problem was it just didn't seem to match what the original series had. There was just something about the way Jack Webb directed it and told the story that really got the public's attention. I guess the 2003 version just couldn't measure up to that. If you ever want to check it out, I suggest you check the original radio programs and then the series all the way from the early 50s to the 60s to 2003. I'm pretty sure you'll like at least one of them. This is Movie Fan, signing off.